One sword style. Speed of light strike. Wait for it. Wait for it. Okay. Now look out your window. My hope is that somebody, somewhere, because all the people watching the video, if they all look out the window at the same time at different locations all over the world, something might have just happened. Like maybe your neighbor is cutting down their tree today or something, and then you look out your window, oh, nothing happened technically. Oh my god, the tree fell down. All right, there you go. Or maybe if you live in a city and like they're demolishing a building today, it's just like, all right, Bill. It's like, well, teching, oh my god, there you go. So I'm hoping that had the effect at a few locations on the planet. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the greatest duo in all of One Piece. And you know what? There's a lot of contenders for that title, of course. Well, we have Bobby and Kelly Funk, the Funk brothers that appeared at Cordia Coliseum. They utilized the power of the jacket fruit, which, let's be honest here, is top 5 paramecia fruits easily. We could have been talking about them, but we're not. Full Body and Django, which I have to say, I'm probably going to make a video about those guys at some point. Full Body and Django's little cover story adventure on Mirrorball Island and their camaraderie and their friendship and working under Hina. I mean, there's something there I can make a video about, definitely. But no, today we are talking about the original swordsman bounty hunter duo, Johnny and Yosaku. Is there not a better example of a brotherly bond, fictional or otherwise, than what exists between Johnny and Yosaku? I think not, ladies and gentlemen. They're not real brothers, but they are brothers, okay? So I've actually gotten a lot of requests to talk about Johnny and Yosaku, and hey, I'm happy to do that. I like the characters. They're a lot of fun. We could do a little bit of a light topic today before we get into the chapter review tomorrow, before we talk about chapter 1006, so why not? I think this is a good time for it. And because I just talked about Dead End Adventure earlier this week, the 4th One Piece movie, we had Shiraya in that movie who was a bounty hunter, and of course we don't get a lot of bounty hunters in the spotlight in One Piece. Earlier One Piece, you kind of get the idea maybe Oda wanted to go somewhere with that, like, okay, there are pirates, there are marines, but there's a lot of other kinds of people that exist in the One Piece world, right? There's regular citizens, there's revolutionaries, and there's bounty hunters, right? So we got Johnny and Yosaku in the east. Daz Bones eventually appears during the Baroque Work saga. Zoro used to be a bounty hunter, obviously. But after that, I mean, there's kind of not really a lot to choose from after that. I think there was actually a few that fought at Cordia Coliseum. There was that John Anglo guy, the guy with the cactus hat that Luffy defeated. He was a bounty hunter. He was actually like one of the bounty hunters that went after a lot of the escaped Impel Down prisoners. So he was actually thankful for Luffy for freeing everybody because it gave him like a lot of work to do. But then I think Luffy just defeated him anyway, so like who cares? But aside from that, from Cordia Coliseum, we didn't really get a lot of other like bounty hunters in the spotlight. That's why I'm kind of hoping, and I came up with this idea, what if Crocodile and Daz Bones start up like a new Baroque Works? They might not actually call it Baroque Works, Baroque Works Take 2, but they gather up maybe some of the strongest bounty hunters and maybe it's like mercenaries in the One Piece world, and it's not as many people as they had working for them under Baroque Works, but it was more like a quality over quantity kind of deal, and maybe that's how you could throw bounty hunters into like the forefront of the story. I'm probably forgetting about a few other bounty hunters at some point there, but those were like the major ones, okay? And it kind of all started with, well, Zoro, but after Zoro, it was Johnny and Yosaku, okay? And I guess Shiraya from the 4th movie, the guy that went up against a Logia user with a damn shovel. He's like, yeah, I'm ready to wreck some stuff. Like, give me that shovel. Okay, bring it on. This'll wreck a Logia, By the way, I have to correct something I did in the Dead End Adventure review really quick. So, in the review, I said that the only people I know of in probably all of fiction that used a shovel as a main weapon were Shiraya and Jack from Mare, and everybody in the comments was just like, man, Tekking, you've never played Shovel Knight, have you? And I have to mention it, because this is the sad thing, I've played Shovel Knight. I've played the crap out of Shovel Knight. I just finished playing King of Cards for the 2nd time last week. I've played every Shovel Knight game at least twice, all right? That was just a moment where it just went blank, and I'm just like, wow, But yeah, I love Shovel Knight. It's an amazing series. And if you haven't played it, go get Treasure Trove on Switch, like right now. It's awesome. At any rate, so Johnny and Yosaku. Okay, so they have a rather humorous introduction to the story, where Luffy and Usopp are practicing with the cannons aboard the Mary. They just got the Going Mary. They're leaving Usopp's village, and in the anime, I think they just went after Gaimon's island. That happens a little bit earlier in the manga, but it happens after Syrup Village in the anime. Anyway, they're just practicing firing cannons, you know, as pirates do. Hey, they gotta practice because they're gonna use those cannons a lot once they get into the Grand Line. Well, there was that one time they used it against Laboon, and then there was, I'm sure they used the cannon at some other point, but I can't think of one, so whatever. At any rate, they fire a rock in the distance, like, boom, you know, head on. You know, Usopp's a great marksman. That's great. You take after Yasopp, Usopp. Good job. Turns out that it wasn't a completely deserted rock. It was actually a place where Johnny and Yosaku had stopped by because Yosaku was extraordinarily sick with scurvy. Aye, scurvy, me lads. The great scourge of the pirate sea. Okay, so scurvy is, of course, a very prominent disease that existed back in the day before you had a proper way to store certain, like, citrus fruits and vegetables aboard your pirate ships, okay? Because back in the day, from what I've heard, they didn't have electricity, nor did they have internet, nor did they have YouTube, nor did they have refrigerators, from what I've been told, okay? I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm just gonna go along with the history books on that one. So, storing things like, you know, vitamin C and enriched fruit, that's going to be kind of difficult. And if you have a deficiency, a mass deficiency of vitamin C, you get scurvy, which, by the way, I do not recommend going and searching images of scurvy if you are squeamish when it comes to teeth falling out or your gums bleeding or anything like that, because, yeah, you're not going to sleep tonight. But at any rate, it's a very bad disease, and Yosaku was afflicted with it. He went pale, his old wound opened up, teeth started falling out. But luckily for Yosaku, he exists in the One Piece world, where if you lose a tooth or you get a broken bone or something, all you gotta do is drink some milk, and that'll heal you up right quick. So they bring aboard the Mary. You know, Yosaku is about to die. He's bleeding because a cannon just hit the rock. Johnny's pretty pissed too. He goes on the Mary, and actually, fun fact, Johnny is the first person to board the Mary that wasn't a Straw Hat. Okay, so there you go. That's something kind of interesting, right? The Straw Hats all join up at Usopp's village, at Syrup Village. Kaya and Mary give them the Going Mary. They get aboard, they sail away, and Johnny's the first person to, you know, get on board and attack the Straw Hats, something that will continue in the future. But Johnny was the first, so you respect this man. I like his sunglasses. He's got a tattoo with the kanji for ocean or sea or umi on his face. That's how you know you don't mess with this guy. And he was named after Johnny Bravo, so he's got the hair, right? Okay. At any rate, Johnny's pretty mad because his sworn brother Yosaku's about to die, so yeah, okay. Zoro steps out and he's like, "Oh, Johnny, what are you doing here?" And I kind of like that scene. I like it. Where Johnny sees Zoro and they're like old bounty hunter buddies, and they're just like, "Oh, big bro Zoro, man, what are you doing here? I haven't seen you in forever. What are you, a pirate now?" And it's just this kind of like, you know, they don't hate each other, and it's very clear that like Zoro also viewed them as friends, and that was something that was cool because you could have easily, because the dynamic that the three of them had, Johnny and Yosaku were obviously way below Zoro's, like, you know, weight class, way below their level in terms of swordsmanship. There's no way that they could have held a candle to Zoro, right? So it's easy for them to have just been like, "Oh my god, Zoro senpai," like kind of like Bartolomeo, "Zoro senpai, you're the greatest, you're so awesome, we'll follow you to the ends of the earth." And Zoro would just be kind of like, whatever, just stay away from me or whatever. But no, they were all just friends. You get the impression they were all, you know, good friends, like drinking buddies, or they go and, you know, maybe, you know, take somebody's bounty in, and then they would like maybe split it between the three of them, and that's just how they lived and like traveled around the East. Not always together, they would go their separate ways every now and then, but they would run into each other once in a while to take down a big bounty or something, and then they bid farewell. Like every few weeks, every few months, they'd run into each other, and they were like really good pals, and I just kind of like that. So Zoro steps out, and he's like, "Oh, hey Johnny, how you been?" And he's just like, "Oh, Zoro, you're here. You're a pirate." And he's like, "Yeah, you know how it goes. Just one thing led to another. Some stuff has happened since last time I saw you guys. So what's up with Yosaku?" "Oh, Yosaku, he's doing pretty good. Last time I saw him, he's about to die. Oh no!" So Nami was smart enough to know it was scurvy, and so Luffy and Usopp bring some limes in and just drip some limes into his face. And like I said, same deal with the milk thing. You have a chronic illness, scurvy, which I would assume would probably take several days, if not weeks, to recover, especially if it was like that severe where he's literally pale and bleeding out and losing teeth. Like if it's scurvy that far along, probably would take a little while to recover. But no, just drip about 10 limes in his mouth, and he jumps up, and all of the color comes back into his face, and all of the teeth regrow, I guess, and his wound closes up, and he's just like, "Hip hip hooray, we're alive, we're alive!" You know what's really funny when I found this out on the wiki? I guess this is a French textbook, but there's a French textbook about like health and wellness, and there's a part in there about scurvy, and they actually used a scene from the One Piece anime in a textbook, in an actual textbook that's actually in a school that I guess if you live in France, you might actually use at some point. That includes a screenshot from the One Piece anime. Oh, I love this story. It just touches every aspect of existence. I love One Piece whenever like little stuff like that happens, right? But anyway, yeah, scurvy is no joke. So remember, kids, to drink your vitamin C, your orange juice, or I take a multivitamin every day. It's got good vitamin C in there. You gotta take vitamin C, okay? It is important, all right? Remember that there was a medicine, there was like an over-the-counter like cold medicine that was marketed, I think it was when I was a kid, where it was like developed by a school teacher, and I remember it was like marketed as like a cure for the common cold. Like there was like literally commercials that said like this will cure the common cold, and they got sued so bad from that. Like I remember there was like a big thing that's like, no, this isn't a cure for the common cold, right? But it was like it's got vitamin C. You don't cure the cold. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not how that works. Anyway, so Johnny and Yosaku then make their proper introduction to the entire crew, right? And they're the biggest badasses that ever did sail the seven seas. The greatest bounty hunter duo in the north, south, east, west, and both halves of the Grand Line. Up into the Sky Islands and down into Fishman Island. They know the names, Johnny and Yosaku. When they walk into a town, everybody knows and bows in respect. The crying children are quelled with just a glare. You know, that's how awesome Johnny and Yosaku are, okay? So, suffice it to say, their own details of their exploits, of their power level, maybe are a little bit exaggerated. They do know how to fight. They're not like, so weak that we're like, oh, we're so strong, but in reality, they can't even hold a sword. No, they're swordsmen. They can hold swords. They use one sword style. They have like these long, like, scimitar, cutlass kind of deals that they both wield. On more than one occasion when Zoro didn't have his other two swords, because his two swords were broken by Mihawk shortly after this, like during Arlong Park, he was like, Johnny, Yosaku, give me your swords. And so, in the Arlong Park arc, you could argue that they were there just so Zoro could use Santoryu near the end. But no, they had other moments as well. They weren't just there so Zoro had extra swords or whatever. But no, they're decently strong when it comes to like regular civilians or whatever. It's not like, like a random farmer could beat them up or something. But, they're not even close to being in, Zoro's level. They did not train in swordsmanship or like kendo or like the way of the blade or whatever like Zoro did with Koshiro for years and years, okay? We actually do find out a little bit about Johnny's backstory, at least, during a filler episode, I should say. And it was well after the East Blue, too. It was after Alabasta, where we get this random episode 135, where we see Zoro's past traveling around the East, and Johnny and Yosaku, that's how they first met and everything. Anybody that's a fan of the 4Kids dub knows that that's the episode where Zoro sliced down Wicked Dick, the most feared mountain bandit in all of the East Blue, with a bounty of 10 million. Wicked Dick, he never stood a chance, man. Actually, in the real version of the anime, not the real version, not the 4Kids version. I don't know what the 4Kids version was, but that wasn't real. At any rate, in the 4Kids version, he's Wicked Dick. In the Funimation, in the official dub, he's Dick the Mountain Whale. I'll let you decide which one is more hilarious and more intimidating, which one of them might be both. I'm not really sure. But at any rate, yeah, he's this big, giant mountain bandit guy. He has a giant, like, bazooka cannon that he carries, and he was worth 10 million. And the basic deal is that Zoro cut down his brother Billy in the bar, and that's also where Johnny and Yosaku were hanging out, sporting different clothing, different hairstyles back then. I like that. I like that. For no, like, that was just more character development or design or anything. Like, this was a couple of years, maybe a year or two before the current storyline, so they had like completely different kind of hairstyles and outfits. That makes sense, just for the fact you don't really see anime characters changing up their outfits very much. But at any rate, this episode is also really cool because it teaches us a little bit about how you live as a bounty hunter in the One Piece world, okay? So Johnny first talks about his past growing up in a poor country village somewhere in the east, and how his village was ransacked by mountain bandits one day, okay? So not very dissimilar to, like, you know, Higama attacking Fuchsia back at, you know, Dawn Island with Luffy's backstory, right? And so who came to save them? It wasn't the Marines, it wasn't the revolutionaries, it was actually the bounty hunters. And bounty hunters are not necessarily like all for justice or morals or anything. A lot of times bounty hunters are just out for a paycheck, right? So it doesn't really matter though, because Johnny looked up to these bounty hunters as the ones that saved their town, regardless of whether or not they wanted it just for the money. You know, they came into the town and they defeated these bandits that were ransacking the place and then dragged their bodies away. And so Johnny was like a little kid when this happened, and he's like, okay, who cares if he needed it for the paycheck or whatever? They saved our town. I want to be like those guys someday. And actually, it's kind of beneficial because it's like I could travel around and, you know, save other little mountain villages, places the Marines or the revolutionaries don't go to, or they're too tucked away in the islands, or maybe too small, like nobody cares about them, but nevertheless they get taken advantage of. So as a bounty hunter, I'm for one part going to liberate those towns and save lives, but also I get to eat at the end of the day. You know, I get rewarded for that. So bounty hunting is actually not such a bad gig in One Piece when you really think about it. We don't really get a lot of stuff with Yosaku's past, but we know Johnny and Yosaku, they met at some point. It's just like, hey, you know, we're gonna fight together. I'm sure they had like a lot of combo attacks and stuff that we didn't get to see in the story, unfortunately, but I would imagine that they would like focus their attacks around that. If nothing else, I mean, they do have a certain level of skill, but if nothing else, you might be able to bluff your way through a lot of combat there. Like, for example, just from like 2 against 1, if they go up against, let's look at some notable bounties in the East Blue that they might have went after. Wild Joe! You don't want to know what Wild Joe did to get that epithet wild, but he was a crazy guy, right? He was walking into town just firing off his revolvers everywhere. He looks like an Old West kind of dude. He has a bounty of 2 million, okay? Now, that's not a lot, you know, of course, compared to Luffy, you know, Mr. 1.5 billion right now, and, you know, freaking Roger was like 5.5 billion or whatever. 2 million, not really that impressive. Although, keep in mind, the average bounty in the East Blue was around 3 million, which still makes Wild Joe kind of, you know, not that impressive. But it was stated that Johnny and Yosaku would go after bounties that were like relatively low in the East. They would kind of like scrape the bottom of the barrel, as Full Body described it, and then just like scrape up enough money to get by. Although I want you guys to all understand just how the berries system works in One Piece. Berries is supposed to be just a direct link to yen in the way it's like exchanging, right? The exchange rate. So if that's the case, 2 million yen is still about 9,000 US dollars, all right? And you could do the other conversions for whatever currency you're in, but $9,000, let me just tell you, that's a decent amount of money, right? Like, that's not just like, oh, you're scraping the bottom of the barrel, fighting bounties, and I mean, fighting people for their bounties and only getting like pennies. You know, that would be like if they were going up against Chopper. He's like, hey, we brought in Tony Chopper. We got 100 barley. That's enough to pay for like a chocolate bar. You know, that's enough to pay for a single soda. We can't afford it to share it because we can't get 2 sodas, but we got a whole can of Sprite for that. So bounty hunting is kind of like that, and Johnny and Yosaku really wanted to get enough money to live. I mean, they didn't expressly say what their exact plans were, but they were like talking about like making it big as bounty hunters. We need to start taking down some bigger bounties, you know, like in like 5-10 million range. And then I'm assuming, you know, they would maybe buy some land, maybe a farm, farm. I didn't use bakery this time. Johnny and Yosaku are going to be farmers, or maybe fishermen, because technically right now in the story, I mean, they still might do bounty hunting on the side, but from what we know with Johnny and Yosaku, after Arlong Park, after the Straw Hats left Arlong Park and Nami properly joined and everything, Johnny and Yosaku just decided to stay in Kokoyashi Village and probably help out the citizens repair the entire town and the other villages that Arlong ransacked and everything. And they finally took down the biggest threat in the East Blue, who was Arlong at that point. And so, yeah, I would imagine they stayed in the town, fixed it up, and they were thinking about leaving and going back to bounty hunting, but maybe Genzo or Nojiko were like, hey, you know, guys, you know, thank you for helping repair the town, and you also helped out, like, not directly, but you did try. You tried to go up against the fishmen, you failed, and you gave Zoro your swords, so you contributed, not as much as the other Straw Hats, but you contributed to try to bring down Arlong, and that means a lot to us. You know, he ruled this entire island for like 8 years. Anybody that came here to try to help us, you know, it's definitely, the help is appreciated. You can stay here if you want. So I'm sure maybe Nojiko and Genzo were like, hey, you know, you want to live here? You know, you could just stay here. You know, you helped rebuild this house. The guy that lived here got killed by Arlong. That was kind of sad. But yeah, you guys can stay here and just live in the village. And I would imagine Johnny and Yosaku were like, well, you know, we could go back to bounty hunting, you know, and if we bring in a bounty, that might sustain us for maybe a few weeks, maybe a few months if it's a decently sized one, you know, between the two of us, but we could just stay here in the village, right? And just live here and then have a job, and then, you know, we don't have to worry about risking our lives to make a living anymore. And so that's what they did. So over the course of the 2 years, they became fishermen, seen right here in the cover spread. Yosaku got ripped, man! You know, look at that back! Yeah, he has a kanji tattoo on the back that's big catch! And so you see Johnny in the background with the giant fish, and so they're just fishermen on the coast of Kokoyashi Village, and they seem to be living a good life there, right? So maybe they might do, you know, they might still train in their swordsmanship. Maybe they might still do bounty hunting every now and then, especially if, like, you know, a bandit or a pirate or somebody lands at Kokoyashi and they're just like, maybe it's kind of our job to help protect the town now, maybe alongside Genzo and everybody, considering what happened last time with Arlong. You would imagine the citizens of Kokoyashi, though, like, after everything that went down with Arlong, after they repaired, it's just like, okay, we need to train. We need to get stronger. I think Genzo was the sheriff. I don't think he was the mayor. I think he was just the sheriff of the town, right? So you can imagine, like, Johnny and Yosaku are going to stay, maybe teach the citizens basic, you know, swordsmanship or how to use weapons and stuff, how to defend their town and stuff, because if this ever happened again, if there was another pirate crew, that doesn't have to be as strong as Arlong, obviously, but if any pirate crew arrived at Kokoyashi to try to bring, you know, it under their control, they would be ready. You know, it's like, oh no, we're not doing this again. They mobilize, and Johnny and Yosaku, like, lead the charge and with Genzo to defeat the enemy. That would actually be pretty cool, right? So that's probably what they're doing right now. But back in the day, it was all about just, you know, defeating some low-level, you know, bandits or whatever to get just enough money to scrape by. They ran into Zoro there at the bar, and they actually got mad at him because they were planning on taking down Billy, and then Zoro cut him down instead. He had a bounty of 5 million, which was about Alvida's bounty. And so, you know, they're like, hey, that was our bounty. We were just waiting for him to leave. They were kind of, you know, worried about fighting Billy. And Zoro was actually kind of polite to them. He wasn't rude to them or anything. Like, just whatever, get your own bounty. No, he was just like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that you were going to be the one to bring him in. Honestly speaking, Zoro wasn't really interested in being called, like, a bounty hunter. Like, he wasn't doing that because it's like, I want to be the greatest bounty hunter that ever lived. No, Zoro wanted to find Mihawk. He wanted to fight Mihawk and be revered as the greatest swordsman in the world because of the promise he made with Kuina. Bounty hunting was just something that Zoro even said in that episode. It's just something I do to get a place to stay and get, like, 3 square meals a day, basically, just to have enough money to get by. I'm not, like, trying to be the greatest bounty hunter. I don't really have, like, a lot of, like, attachment to the job. So if you want to take Billy here and, you know, cash in the bounty of 5 million, go ahead. I don't care. Just make sure to pay my tab at the restaurant. I'm fine with that. And so he just leaves, and Johnny and Yosaku do that. They cash in Billy. They to bring him over to the Marine base, and, like, here's Billy the bandit. It's like, okay, here's 5 million. 5 million, Barry. That's like, hold on, like, so 1 million's like $9,000, so 9 times 5, that's like 45 grand right there. That's probably good. Like, between Yosaku and Johnny, that's like 22 something. Wait, It's like 22 and a half something grand each. That would probably sustain them for quite some time, at least in the One Piece world. Like, have a place to live, have a decent amount. Like, that would pay the groceries for a little while, right? But even so, they wanted to have something a little bit more long term. So that's when they find out about, like, Wicked Dick, the mountain whale up on the hill there, attacking some ranch or some farm. And so they went to go bring him in, and they unfortunately were defeated, but they tried, even after their swords were knocked out and they were beat down, Johnny was just like, bring it on, Dickhole! And then he gets kicked in the face. Of course, Zoro shows up at that point, takes Johnny and Yosaku's swords, takes out the Watto, and he slices Wicked Dick's, he slices, according to this scene, it seems like he goes, because Wicked Dick is like a big guy, right? He's built. And so Zoro kind of does the onigiri and goes right under his legs and slices, and then you just see a lot of blood, and then you see Dick like, so I'm going to assume he sliced off his family jewels. That's where Wicked Dick kept his coin purse, if you catch my meaning there. Yeah, so, Zoro was pretty brutal there, but he sliced him down, and, he falls, and, I'm assuming at that point, maybe they split the bounty between the three of them, so, 10 million, oh god, dividing 10 by 3, no mortal man can do that. Alright, so, 3 million each, that's still, like, on top of the 5 million from Billy, 3 million, that's like, hold on, $27,000 for each of them or something, a little bit more than that for each of them. And so at that point, Johnny and Yosaku, they're still beaten up from the fight, but they're just like, I'm Johnny and I'm Yosaku. He's like, yeah, we're the greatest bounty hunters ever. Can we travel with you, Zoro? And Zoro, once again, he just, yeah, sure, why not? If you want to, I don't mind. Just like, you seem like pretty cool dudes. In the 4Kids dub, he asks them, like, sure, if you guys can cook. And they're like, yeah, we can do that. But in the Funimation, in the actual dub, he just, like, accepts. He's just like, oh, you want to travel with me and be a bounty hunting trio? Yeah, okay, yeah, for sure, why not? Let's go, why not? And so I imagine they travel together for a little while, taking out some bandits and some pirates, cashing in the bounty, splitting it 3 ways. Every now and then, maybe Zoro got a lead for Mihawk, and he was like, hey guys, I heard Mihawk is over at this part of the east, so I'm gonna head over there, but I'll catch you next time. And they're like, yeah, sure, big brother Zoro, we'll see you later. And they bumped into each other every now and then, and that brings us up pretty much until when Usopp fired a cannonball at an island and they got reunited there. And on top of that, Yosaku was actually pretty useful when they were traveling from the Baratier to Arlong Park, because Yosaku was actually the first person in the story to properly explain the warlord system. Being a bounty hunter, after all, he would know a lot about this. I mean, it's the tools of the trade, so to speak. He would probably be going through a lot of the wanted posters that he had. Like, they had, like, the big, like, the bingo book, like in Naruto, like, the big list of wanted posters of, like, all the most dangerous people in the 4 Blues and the Grand Line. And so, obviously, Yosaku and Johnny could not go up against one of the warlords or any of the really strong pirates in the Grand Line or anything, but it's still important to know who they are, because maybe they might run into them at some point and they know when to run away. And so I can imagine, Johnny and Yosaku studied the warlord system and they knew who they all were and who Mihawk was and who Jinbei was and everything, and obviously Arlong was connected to Jinbei. And so Yosaku was the one to really break it down and explain. He was the first person to mention Jinbei by name in this story. Luffy and Sanji didn't really take him seriously at the time, but he did give the explanation. So they obviously knew a lot about how the world of One Piece operated in that regard through their bounty hunter profession. So that was pretty neat. And so probably one of their shining moments, or like the coolest moment that they really had, was after Luffy, Sanji, Usopp, and Zoro walked to Arlong Park in the very dramatic fashion. Dun, dun, dun! Dun, 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 dun! They walked into Arlong Park, and then Johnny and Yosaku kind of took out their swords and kind of used it as like a barrier so the citizens of Kokoyashi couldn't get in, because they were like, we gotta help the Straw Hats, and Johnny and Yosaku's like, nah, don't go in. No one enters beyond this point. Leave it to the Straw Hat pirates, right? So that gives the impression that, like, Johnny and Yosaku, you could say that they were just like, it's like, well, Johnny, we can't do anything, but we could be guards. Yeah, that could be something. That sounds cool. You could look at it like that, like they just wanted to be cool, which they probably did. But you could also look at it like, hey, Johnny, there's no way we can beat Arlong or Karubi or any of their strongest, fighters. Like, no, there's no way. We have to leave it to Big Bro Zoro and Luffy and the Straw Hats. And so it's like, okay, well, they don't want to just run and hide behind a freaking rock and just be like, we gotta get out of here, we gotta get out of here, just hide behind a rock, right? No, there's like, well, what can we do? It's just like, well, we can at least make sure the citizens don't, barge in and get like slaughtered. We can at least manage that much. And so that's what they do. And they do it in a really cool fashion, right? It's just like, no entry beyond this point. This is a battle between the Straw Hats and Arlong. Whoever wins, whoever loses, decides the fate of this island. Like in a real, I don't think they actually said that, but they were thinking it. It was a very dramatic fashion. It's like, we need to get in there and help the Straw Hats. No. Fate. We'll see if fate is on their side. At any rate, that's Johnny and Yosaku, and they were bounty hunters, and now they're fishermen, and I'm sure they're living the dream in Kokoyashi Village. Are we ever going to get to see them again? Well, you know what? I would say yes, we would, because you know what? At some point in this story, probably not near until the epilogue, but eventually during this story, the Straw Hats, I think, are all going to go back home. We're going to see that homecoming between Usopp and Kaya. We're going to see Zoro return to his dojo in the east. And we're also going to see Nami reunited with Nojiko, her sister, and Genzo, And Johnny and Yosaku will probably be there to welcome Nami back to Kokoyashi as well. So we'll probably see them one more time in the story, but probably not for quite some time. But it was cool while it lasted, and maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll get some more bounty hunter action at some point in One Piece. But anyway, until that day, just remember that one time that Johnny and Yosaku and Zoro fought against Wicked Dick, the mountain whale. Yep. Okay. You guys have a good night. This will be Tekking and Barry signing out.